I was not able to even know what I was feeling. I was not even able to even know what emotions I was going through, let alone communicate it. There is a deep need for the masculine to be held in those safe feminine containers. There is so much beauty in men's work, and there is so much healing that gets to happen in the hands of a woman.
On today's episode of Universal Intimacy, I am so ecstatic to be joined by a dear sister of mine, Cleo. Cleo is a phenomenal tantric bodyworker, a leader of freedom facilitation retreats, and devoted to sharing the mastery of the ancient temple arts with her clients. She specializes in empowering individuals to embrace their sensuality and sexuality, to reclaim pleasure as their birthright, and really is attuned to the importance of working with men. I'm also really honored to call Cleo a dear sister, friend, colleague, and a beautiful priestess mirror who we've shared so many experiences with. So I'm just really, really juiced up to share her story and her medicine with all of you today.
Hello.
Hello. So, love, I know we're just landing, right? We've been together all weekend.
Yeah.
Here in a beautiful container, and just honoring our nervous systems and our bodies, and just attunement to what it means to be alive now. So I'm just curious, what's alive in you right now?
So much is alive in me right now. Okay, we're going to go into embodiment talks anyway. So it's really good to start with that. Like, my body feels really alive right now, like tingly and warm and excited. Just a lot of sensations alive right now. Energy moving up my spine. And I'm really noticing the activations of this weekend that we just spent together. It was very, very deep work, and we love to do this kind of stuff together. We love to go deep. And so the activation that comes from that is like almost like a form of expansion of your energetic field, which is really, really beautiful. That's how I feel right now.
Yes, this expansion of the energetic field. And I love that you share like that it's going up your spine, which we know is Kundalini. I would just love to hear you share to the listeners and the watchers, like, what is that energy? What is Kundalini, sacred life force energy?
Yeah, there's like different ways to describe it. You know, the chi, the life force, Kundalini. Basically, like, we have a physical body and we also have an energetic body. And traditionally, in like the ancient systems originated in India, the ancient systems of Tantra describe this energy as Kundalini, meaning the coiled snake. So the snake is sitting at the bottom of the spine, kind of waiting to be awakened.
Yeah.
And as we do practices to unlock and like shed layers of conditioning of repression that we have built throughout our life around our expression to just function in society, we are allowing our body to fully express and come to aliveness. And in that transformation, like, the snake uncoils and spirals up the spine. So like you can really feel it eventually after doing a bunch of these practices. And it's kind of this energy of like really coming alive in your body and coming to a place of integration. I like to see our physical bodies as like a bridge between the material realm of the earth and whatever other realm, like we can put it higher up, but really like, you know, it's kind of another plane of existence to me. You can call it source or the universe or God. You know, I like this quote of like, everyone is arguing about its name, but no one is arguing about its existence. So that field that we can't necessarily always grasp. Yeah. And we literally are a bridge because we are able to be the embodiment of that source consciousness into this physical body and function on the earth. So like really, when you look at our energy body and our spine, like awakening the Kundalini and awakening that snake is really creating that bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I I would consider you an expert in Kundalini Ma, in this sacred life force energy. And I truly feel as though this area of expertise does not come from studying and reading books and going to the right schools, which a lot of other fields in the outside world are centered on, right? On education in that traditional institutional format. Yeah. So how does one learn this? Like, share with us your path. Like, how did you learn about sacred life force energy, and how did you become a master of it?
I love this question because it's true. Like in all fields, there is a level of education you need to learn, to know about. But I feel like most of my learnings have been within the scope of my own body and my lived experience. It's like having my body as a research laboratory, and I have a background in science. And so I have a bit of the mind of a scientist. So I like to research and observe and analyze and then make my own conclusions a little bit. I can read something in a book, but unless I have felt it in my body, I won't really grasp the concept. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about this work. Like if it's just mind concept, of course, but like, a lot of my learning has been with Laila Martin. I was in her container, of sacred sex, love and relationship coaching. Which has really given me the basis understanding of the principles that we use, but really it's things I was using already, like meditation, breath work, sounding, being in your body. I've been on this path for the last 12 years, like starting with yoga and self-development and just spending time in our bodies. Yeah. And then having intentional practice around those tools, like creating space where we actually go deeper in the breath work, go deeper in the meditation, go deeper into awakening the sexual energy, which we'll go into is a super powerful medicine to awaken all that. Then things start to shift, things start to change. And then because we have this practice of meditation and body awareness, we're able to notice those changes. We're able to see the shifts, and we're able to understand there is something happening in my body right now. And so whatever book we're going to read, maybe we're going to be like, okay, this is what's happening in my body right now is, I think, what I've read over there. But ultimately, we all have our own experiences. We all have our own bodies and our own different versions of how this might be happening. Yeah. So really honoring the power of our bodies and the importance of building a relationship with your own.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like for individuals like us who were just innately embodied and in tune with what I call sensorial awareness, or just our felt sensuality, this all makes sense, right? But what would you say to someone who's like, okay, none of that just made sense to me because I'm in my head all day, right? Like I'm focused on what I have to do at work and how I have to fold the laundry and how I have to pick up the kids at 3. Like, how do you get someone who's in that world of like tasks and emails to do this work? I know you mentioned meditation and yoga, which kind of sounds like potentially a path, right? But I feel like there's more to it. I'd love to hear your expansion upon that.
I love this question because it's not like I was always that sensitive. I was not always feeling that much. I think, yes, there is an innate propensity to be in my body or to like spending time in it because I like dancing, for example. But, until I started meditating, I didn't really know what it was to actually like be inside of myself, right? It was always like outside. What is happening there? What I have to do there? To come back to your question, I think the importance here is to like take baby steps. And so it's not about trying to do all the things and all the right things and all the practices and burn yourself out with it, It's more, to me, like what is one little thing that I could implement in my daily life that will make a change eventually? And so one thing for me that made a big, big difference is learning about the felt sense awareness. The felt sense awareness, we studied the same program, so she knows, is what is present in your system at every given moment. And that can be sensations, that can be thoughts, that can be images, that can be like emotions. And how can we become aware of that? Yeah. And that's a whole process in itself. So I was practicing that as my practice. So instead of doing meditation, I would just scan my body and just start from head to the toe. This is a form actually of meditation, but it's like I didn't have to do it sitting down in an ashram or like on a meditation cushion with like some meditation music,
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy doing this like in everyday activities, like driving my car or like going to the groceries and then, okay, what's happening in my body right now? And the more I did that, the more I scanned that, the more I could intercept like sudden sensations in my daily life. So then suddenly I would be doing something and I would feel like, oh, there's a contraction in my stomach right now. Yeah. And that's because I was practicing that body scan a few times. I was practicing to just go inward and see what's happening in my system. And eventually you develop that skill, which is the skill that we all have really, to listen to our bodies kind of like as if it was running always. Like you can still do your life and do all your tasks and go about with your day. But there is an innate listening in the background that like when something is happening, you can notice it. So like when there is a shift inside of your inside ecology, you can notice it.
Yeah. Exquisite. And I would love to add that like this is actually a tool that makes someone a good lover, right? Which I know we're going to get into, but I kind of want to share this reference point that literally just happened because you're again impeccable at this. You know, we're driving here and I'm like talking about like what happened with my beloved this weekend and the drama and all this. And you're like, Josephina, I'm really aware that like I'm having this sensation in my body of like contraction. And so can we talk like as we're about to go into this podcast, like, can we shift this conversation? Like, can we talk about something else so that I can feel more grounded in preparation for the podcast? And like that simple attunement to your own felt sense awareness and then activating your voice to be able to say that to me. Like for you and I, we do this all the time, right? And it's very normal, but this is so profound and next level for most humans, right? Like most humans would have sat there and in this awkward conversation and just would have been like, cause you think like by just sitting there and tolerating it, you're being a good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like instead, by you presencing your truth in your body, you created awareness in me of how I was energetically taking up space with my shit. Like, let's be real. I was like, I want to talk about all my shit with you as a girlfriend. Right.
And I love you. I love you so much. And I love when you do this, you know.
I was taking up space, your space and time. And I was creating a frequency of this like adrenaline, this serotonin, but this dopamine, but also this like fight or flight. Like I was triggering a trauma response in you. And like we don't want to do that to our friends or B to like somebody right before we're about to like be on a podcast together. Right. So just share with us. Yeah.
I love this, you know, and like ultimately we're all responsible for our own experiences. So it's not like, oh my God, like she is guilty for triggering a trauma response in me. It's more like, okay, how can we move through the world with that awareness, in each given moment of our system, of our inner ecology, of our bodies, and what is working or not working, and what we need for regulation, for homeostasis, because really like the ideal, like, you know, is to be able to regulate. It's okay to go in highs and lows, but it's how we come back to that regulation eventually. And I think in that moment, I just noticed those sensations in my body. I'm noticing that I was coming inward. I was not fully present with you. You know, you were talking and I was like, and like, I was just like, in my head, I was like, I don't think I can do this. You know, I started to notice like the little moments of contractions and not being able to fully listen and like the sensations in my body rising and the urgency of the conversation ending. Yeah. I was like, okay, maybe after this sentence, you know, but then I was like, well, no, it's like up to me to also state that boundary here.
Yes.
And also you being a friend, it's like, well, like, how can I communicate that boundary in a very loving way that you feel like, hey, I'm here for you, like anytime. And just right now, also my body and my system, I just don't have the capacity for it. Yeah. And so,
and
so it doesn't have to be like a boundary expressed, doesn't have to be like, oh my God, you're cutting people off and you're being mean. It's like, we get to be loving with each other.
Yeah. I love you for that. Yeah. And so that first step is your own awareness of that felt sense. But then the second step is like, I like to say like opening the throat chakra, activating the voice so that you feel safe enough to kind of confront me, right? To lean into that uncomfortable sensation of like, okay, I'm feeling this way in my body. Because again, I have no idea. Like we have no idea what the other person is experiencing in their body, right? So we don't know unless you voice it out loud or show us energetically. Like I could be like, oh my God, and then you think you know what my human experience is just based on your perception of observation, but you don't really know until I am able to articulate it and tell you. But then it's like, how do you coach or advise someone who after, they understand, now I know the felt sense reality, but then like, there's that fear of like the voice activation piece. How do you guide folks on how to activate the voice?
Yeah, so we talked about the energy body, and so we have also energetic lines and energy centers, and the throat, like it's the center of our expression. So we have the throat chakra. We have like different chakras in our bodies. We have main ones and a lot of little ones, and the throat is responsible for communication and expression. 10 years ago, I was not able to even know what I was feeling. I was not even able to even know what emotions I was going through, let alone communicate it.
Yeah.
I was dating someone who really pushed me in there. He was like, well, what are you thinking? What is happening? He was really pushing me hard in a way that's like, it helped me in some ways. And in some ways it was also a little bit like invasive, looking back on it. But that really showed me where, I was actually not showing my environment. I was not informing my environment of what was going on inside because I was not even aware myself of what was going on inside. And like, it's actually a gift to others to be able to inform them so they can relate to you in a way that works with you. And so it was a lot of learning in that, like through that relationship, a lot of emotions came up, and then I was able to like grasp a bit of it, when I started to like read this book about emotions and like, okay, there's anger and fear and joy and like all these things, and just I started to research, how does that feel in my body? How can I express that's what I'm feeling right now, and so it's like a step-by-step work. And then energetically, like we get to do work around that energy center. Like I had a lot of like trauma around the throat chakra.
Are you willing to share some of that in this timeline or past lives?
There is definitely some past things that have come up in meditations where I was like really feeling like strangled almost, or slit, there's a thing there. Yeah. In this lifetime, like when I was 18, I got assaulted by like a bunch of men, like there were 3. They tried to steal my phone in the subway, and they all came on me and like slapped me on the wall, and they grabbed my throat and put their hand on my mouth, and they told me, "Shut up, bitch, and give your phone." So, like that was like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And going back on that, like that was 18, and then I went like I kind of trickled it back down. I was like, okay, what else happened? Sure. When I was younger, I was like in this like holiday with kids. It's like almost like all the kids go together in a vacation. It was like with my mom's company, something. And like, I was just being a kid. I was just joyful and I was very expressive. And somehow, apparently, it was too loud, And one of the, we're gonna get into that. So one of the space holders, I don't know how you would call them, like I don't know what's the English word for it. Like the people who take care of us, right?
What is the word in French?
Animateur.
Animateur?
It means like they're basically like taking us through activities and like holding the space.
Camp
and
counselor,
like,
probably we would call it here.
Something like
counselor,
that.
camp counselor.
They were not really counselors though. They were just telling us what to do, and like, And so she came and like put some tape on my mouth. Like,
stop.
Yeah, I remember that moment. And like, I remember that telling that my mom just a few years ago, and she was like, oh my God, why did you never tell me this? I would never let someone treat my kid like that. And I was like, yeah, but like, and I was reflecting on it recently. I think it's because I was afraid, like that I had done something so bad that like, if on top of it, they will tell my mom or my parents, like what is going to happen? Like, I'm already getting punished by one adult. Maybe I don't want to get punished by my parents afterwards,
Yeah.
And before that as well, there was an instance where I was at school, like I was maybe like 6, 7 or something. And there is a word in French that teachers use at school to describe a child that talks too much. It's bavard, like talkative maybe. But it's like one of those like words that's very used at school, you know? Oh, you're too talkative.
Wow.
That's so interesting, right? It's like you have to not disturb the environment, not disturb the classroom. And so she said that I was bavard, and she washed my mouth with soap.
Wow.
That was the practices like in the early
so
90s,
intrusive.
you know? And so seeing all these moments where my voice got shut down, right?
Yeah.
So like, of course that bottled up a thing in me that like people in my surroundings when I was in my early 20s were telling me, you're like a poker face. We don't know what you think, what you feel.
Oh, thank you for sharing this. There's so much here.
Yeah.
Because especially as women, right? There's so much related to this programming that we've received about being too much, about how it's not safe for us to speak our truth, to articulate our voices in a variety of environments. And I guess I want to touch upon sort of these 3/4 instances that you mentioned, because I think a lot of us can relate. You know, obviously as a child, if you were told that you were too talkative and disruptive in the classroom, or even if you had parents that didn't make you feel fully seen or heard, right? If you had a sibling that maybe talked more than you, and so you had to be like quiet, or like you were told to be quiet all the time. So it can really cause people to shut down that chakra, that energy center. Yeah. And then you mentioned just some experiences with men, you know, and being violated and assaulted. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. That, I'm so sorry, holding you in my heart in that. And I think what's interesting that came through in that is how erotically those gestures have become fetishized, right? The putting the hand over the mouth, the putting the hand on the throat. And we don't understand sometimes what's happening in these erotic scenes when people who consider themselves to be dominant are reenacting these power dynamics. And if they're not properly informed of the trauma that the female-bodied individual has previously been through, they could be reactivating trauma. People think, oh, it's sexy and kinky to like choke her out. So I would love to go into that. But then I also really love, and I would love to hear your transmission on the past life frequency of, because this is something that many women and many women in my field and your field, we consider ourselves priestesses, right? So in a past life, we were burnt at the stake. We were beheaded. We were like literally choked to death. So we're holding that frequency as women for the collective. And I'm closing my eyes now because I am channeling also in the attunement and awareness of the connection between the yoni portal and the throat.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah, I love this. And one piece that I want to add, like, because I talk about like all the things that happened and like also my journey to that, like, you know, like I don't think I fully talked about how I got to where I am right now, but it was about building a lot of safety, like, and let's go into that as well with the Priestess lineages, you know, like, for a while, there used to be a time where women were like connected to a higher realm and being like guides for society. They would like help people to tune in with the divine and to create a harmonious society. There were women that were deeply embodied, that were deeply awakened, that were deeply empowered with their sexual energy, fully integrated and fully alive. And there was a point where those women became a threat because they are so powerful. And so we started to put labels on them. They were the witches, they were the hysterics, they were all those...
They were crazy.
The crazy ones. And so we had to shut them down. We had to push them away to make sure that they don't take too much power because we want that power. And so those archetypes were created, those constructs were created and created fear in other people and created division. So we know like how the best way to get control is to create division. And so what happens now, I think, is like there is a remembrance. These lineages are coming back. Like a lot of women are awakening to their innate priestess gifts, which are really truly like being in your body, being in your heart, like loving humanity and being so fucking alive. And I think there's just so much beauty in that. It's like we have come to a point where it's safe again. We get to come out. And so coming onto the life, like past life things, like I used to also be like very skeptical about past lives. I was like, all the people having their past life regressions, I'm like, how you know that you're not making that up? Like, what do you mean? Like I was not like fully sold. And I just like had different visions in meditative practices. And that were done sober, so not on any substances. So just on my bed, like seeing like literally someone like on top of me. And it's like I was doing this practice, like this meditation practice where I would go back in time and I had to find the moment where that fear originated. I was working a lot with the throat in that time.
Yeah.
And that took me to a place where I was like lying down on the ground and there was like this person on top of me, this like man strangling me and like slitting my throat. And I know that didn't happen to me in that life, right? So, I like to leave some mystery around it because of course, like, we can make up stories. But there is a certain transmission there. There's a certain energy of fear that is real. And it's like the collective consciousness, whether or not I live that life, whether or not it's a past life, it's present in the collective field. And so I'm sure everyone who watches the podcast knows that we have a collective consciousness, like as human beings, like the same way animals have a collective consciousness and they can hear or feel a storm coming. And it's like they communicate with each other at greater length. It's like they communicate through energy. And so in that way, those memories are vivid in the field. I had another experience where I was like lying on the sound bed, an Opus sound bed, by the way. It's amazing. Opus sound beds. They're vibrating beds that are like connected to an app that plays a certain frequency and music in your ears and matches the vibration into the bed so that your body is vibrating at the same frequency that the music you're hearing. And so I had this whole session on it, and I literally like felt like the fire. Like I was like, it was as if I was burning, and talk about the witches burning. And I felt that fire, and suddenly I started to have this like crazy laugh. Like it was this like laughter of like the almost the phoenix rising from the ashes. There was a knowing that anything, this quote, like nothing is birthed, nothing is destructed, everything is transformed. And fire is literally like the element of transformation. Yeah. And through that fire, through burning all the witches, what happens is like they're not going away, right? They transmute, they alchemize, they turn into ashes and they rise back. And so, and it's not necessarily saying like it's a fight thing. It's just like what I believe our society needs, our earth needs. We need people in power that are deeply integrated and in their heart, that are honoring the power and the beauty of our sexuality as our primary life force and as the energy that brought us all into this world, and honor it with respect rather than trying to make it a taboo thing. And I believe our society gets to be way healthier when we grasp that concept fully, all of us, or we remember that concept, because I think deep inside we all know it. And yes.
So that's like such a beautiful transmission. Thank you, sister. Priestess. In this priestess frequency, as far as we're also here being called to service, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about you and I, and one of our shared threads is, although, yes, we love to work with women and femme-bodied individuals to help them feel more empowered and embodied and reclaiming their sensuality and sexuality as sacred, and activate their throat so they can step into their empowerment even more, we've actually chosen to work with men a lot, predominantly. My predominant client base is men and couples, and I believe yours is as well. So I would just love to hear from you, like, Yeah, why are you choosing to work with men and awaken their sacred remembrance?
Thank you.
Yeah.
For this question. This was the main reason I stepped into this work when I realized I could build a career around sexuality coaching. There was a knowing that I had to work with men straight away. You know, I went to like a few talks and things, and I was just crying, you know, like those tears of remembrance almost. Or when you know something is made for you, like you just have this gut full fuck yes. You just like, you're getting emotional and you know that there is something there alive for you to work with. So there was this like deep calling. And, you know, I've shared that before, but like in my ancestry, women were really hurt by men. Not all the women and not all the men, like 100% not like that. But there was some really deep instances and like very intense instances of abuse and rape and things that happen over generations, you know, of treating women like objects or like property, of not respecting women and violence. And that didn't happen like in my direct, like it was not my parents. It was more like grandparents, like the stories that I've heard from people in my family that were able to share it with me graciously. And, you know, there was a lot of anger, like, you know, a lot of anger and sadness and sorrow. Yeah. And, you know, after feeling all that, beyond that, behind that, there was like a sense of compassion. And I know it can sound crazy sometimes to people when I say this, but it's like I have this deep compassion for men because a lot of the time they are just the product of a system that is working for neither of us. Yeah. And they are suffering just as much as we are. It's like that misplaced anger. Yeah. It's because they haven't been taught emotional awareness, emotional expression, the things that get to happen when you're fully embodied, right? The things that you get to do with priestesses that like initiate you in those matters. Yeah. And so I didn't know that back then. I just knew I had a calling to work with men. I knew they had something to do with sexuality. I was very natural in that. And I always had that reflection back. And I just didn't know that it could be a career path, you know, for a long time. So I worked in like men-dominated environments, like construction for a long time. And
that's so fascinating to me, by the way. You like shared that with me just today. I was like, Cleo was a construction worker? I was like, how do I not know this part of your story? But
I said for a long time, but it was not a really long time. Maybe on my lifespan is a long time. It was like about a year.
It's in those spaces where you recognize too that you have a sense of belonging and camaraderie, and the companionship with the masculine isn't just this erotic thing. It's like, wait, I can be a space holder for the totality of what it means to be an embodied man just as much as an embodied woman.
Yes, exactly. Right. And not trying to like, you know, be like on a brother level, because I'm aware like we have different, you know, differences and everything. Although sometimes I wish I always talk to my male friends that run men's work containers that I wish I could just go and like sneak in and grow my mustache or something.
I know, right? I carry the bro vibes a lot. Like I'm like bro. Like you saw me today with Justin. Hi, Justin. Yeah. We're like, we love Justin. But it's like, yeah, there is a difference in the way that we show up in the female body and sharing those divine feminine frequencies to help them up level, to be the space holder for the totality of their emotions and their expression. And I love that you referenced Eros earlier, again, as we know, that sacred life force energy that is connected to anger and wrath. And if we give them safe containers to express the grief, the sadness, the frustration, the anger, the wrath, like then, yes, you can also have access to pleasure and bliss, right?
Yes.
It's all of it.
And like women, there's this saying I saw somewhere, like women have been initiating humanity into the remembrance of their divinity through the power of their sexuality for millennia. And it's like the archetype of the muse, you know, the beautiful creator that is a woman, that fully embodied in her aliveness, in her chaos, in her rapture, in her essence. You know, it's not just like the pretty, beautiful woman. It's like the fullness of it. And they can be really mesmerizing creatures. And I believe like there is a almost like a purpose to that, because women are usually deeply connected to their bodies, their feelings, their sense of feelings. You know, women, we often start our sentences by "I feel," and we literally bleed every month.
Right. I'm like, you're gesturing. She's gesturing downward towards her womb intentionally because of this thread, right? Like, we're more attuned to our felt sense awareness, our feelings, not just because of our hearts, but because of our wombs, because of our pussy, because we bleed every month. And so we're constantly attuned to these like cyclical patterns and details.
I love this. Yeah. And so then we get to be a permission slip.
I totally just I wanted to pull through this thread of like details and like co-creation with you that I love, but we'll bring it back to like event production and rituals and retreats. Yes. But sacred masculine. Yeah. Empowering men.
So that gets to be a permission slip. You know, oftentimes I think like a reflection that I got was like, oh, like I feel safe to be authentically me.
Yes.
Because I can see that you can be authentically you. And so it's like the permission slip of like feeling and expressing and being so alive, and like men feeling safe to then develop that in them as well, in themselves.
Yeah, especially in the sexual energy, right? I know we just presence like, anger and wrath and sadness, but like, I think the reason why Eros has been shamed and vilified and misunderstood, and it becomes like wonky and distorted, and it's partially societal, culturally, you know, because of institutions, religions, dogma, but we haven't had divine feminine priestess representations of it for centuries. And so when you're talking about awakening the sacred remembrance, I think it's important that we have actual embodied archetypes of it, such as yourself. So I want to honor you for... Oh, thank you, sister. Yeah, it's... Gosh, and there's so much here, because as women, there's like the sisterhood wounding of like, we get judged as like, oh, she's a slut, you know, because we're embodied, or like there's a whole thread there. I don't want to go into that. But as far as how to work with men, like you said, it's because they feel safe that they can be in their fullest expression too, right? And how does that show up for you with your clients? I'm curious.
What I see the most is their body, their system, allowing them to have an experience that they've never had before. And so having energetic awakening, for example, or crying during arousal, or this kind of experiences are new in their field, but it's creating a safe space for them to experience the fullness of their aliveness, of their humanity, right? Because like we get to do sexuality in a different way. So I really love to work with sexuality because it's such a powerful force, and because it has been so conditioned as well to be used in one way, you know? We have this like construct of like how sex should happen. And it's so funny, like, you know, when you think about it, it's like almost like we made it this mechanical thing. It's so disconnected. And I'm like, why?
Right.
But again, it's like this empowerment of something that's so powerful.
Yes.
Because when you're really in your body and in present, and you allow your body to fully express the range of life that is within you, like your anger, your rage, your joy, your crying, your pleasure, your bliss, your screams, like, it goes in all directions, really, when you start to let it happen, let it flow. I love watching Josephine in like spaces, because she's the true embodiment of that. Is so beautiful.
Oh my God, my range. Sorry, I want to dial back, because you mentioned an energetic awakening. So again, people think like, oh, you're a sex coach or a tantric facilitator. Oh, men are just getting with you to get a hand job. So like, can you demystify that, please? Please, for the collective. This is not what we're doing.
We're not doing hand jobs.
That's not a tantric massage. It's not a happy ending.
It's not like, and also I want to like come back on this because I'm like, we're not doing that. It's not like a hierarchy thing. I'm really aware of almost the hierarchy in like working with sexuality, and I really don't want to go there because it's like there's need for everything. It's just that I choose to specialize in one aspect, and there is so much beauty in all of the aspects, and ultimately people are looking for connection, so whether they get their hand job in a car or they get like a sensual massage, erotic massage with happy ending, or whether they go to see a tantric practitioner, maybe they have a slight different intention, but really there is a deep desire for connection to their body and their sexuality, which is an innate need as a human being, right? So all of those iterations of the work are valid.
Thank you for that, sister. That's a really powerful transmission that you just shared, that I just want to like pause and just be like, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
I'm very passionate about that because I hear in the field, sometimes, and it's like people are like, oh, I do this, but I don't do that. And it's almost like disgracing, it's a bit like the energy that we just shared just then, and it's like, okay, how can we catch that? Because like, it's like almost like hierarchizing and like making something like, and it's like, no, we're not like higher. We're not like more evolved or more spiritual or whatever. Like this is just our version of our human expression.
Right.
And we all get to dance together in this world, and we all have a potent and powerful role. And it's just about following what is really calling us.
Yeah. And exactly. We can't be talking about that we're here for the fullness and the totality of the human expression and the expansiveness and not honor literally the totality, right? It's like people that say that they're spiritual and then they're all love and light and they're not willing to go into the primal. It's like, so thank you for
100%.
calling me into deeper presence, right? Because it can get a little like, it can get a little wobbly when we do start to say what it is, and in saying what it is, we're innately categorizing what it isn't, and that can be perceived as being judgmental when it's actually discernment of saying like, this is what I am available for as a tantrika.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then you get to choose, right? You get to choose what you're available for, what you want to offer. And then you get to have your boundaries around that. And and so did you want to?
Yeah, these energetic awakenings. So you'd mentioned, sometimes in a session, there's an energetic awakening. Sometimes there's tears that come through in the arousal.
Yeah.
So if you can unpack that a little.
Yeah,
deeper.
beautiful. So like usually like a session, like if it's an in-person bodywork session, a lot of it is about bringing the person back to their bodies. So like we spend a lot of time in our heads to function in society. So how can we create spaces where we get to go back in our bodies? And we discussed before, it's not always easy. So we love to create places where people get to do that. And so the process of that is really to bring the body to a state of regulation, relaxation, and that happens with conscious touch and massage. And it's not really like a per se traditional massage. It's more like an intuitive massage, and like how can we really be present within our bodies and let our hands guide us so that we can feel in the body of our client what is needed to be touched, what is needed to be moved. Yeah. And from that place we get into a relaxed space for the receiver, and from a relaxed space, a relaxed nervous system, we get to awaken the sexual energy, which is really the basis of our humanness. And it's this really powerful force that when it gets awakened, again, like that link with the Kundalini, it just can move throughout our system, and we are really used to pushing it out of our bodies. Like everything is telling us, myself, I used to like do that. I would contract all of my muscles and like come in secret. No one can hear me. Like don't disturb anything, and like just contract.
Okay, so you're referring specifically to an orgasm.
Yeah, and to like get to a point of orgasm. Sorry. Like to like
sometimes with your accent, it's like
like touching myself, like that's how I was like conditioning myself to do it, as a kid. Like, okay, I have to be silent about it. I have to be discreet, and I have to like make it like, just to contract and tense and push it out. And so when we start to awaken sexual energy and arousal from a relaxed space, then we get to have like more movement in the body, and that energy gets place to go to. We get to have space for it to move towards, because when we're all contracted and tense, we're just blocking it out to go anywhere, so it just goes out of our energetic body, it goes away. And this energy, this force is so precious and so so potent that it's really important to make space for it in our bodies. And so when it starts to travel, it gets to meet potential blockages that we may have built over our lifetime, right? By some form of pains or hurts, like the thing I was telling about my throat chakra, right? I was hurt there, and so I created a blockage around my expression. And so when we start to awaken that energy, and it gets to like gently come and push those blockages, like really release what is ready to be released. Our bodies are really wise, and they get to do that in their own tempo. Then we get to have those fluid movements of energy that are referred to as energy awakening, So like there is a certain texture or flavor of it, it can happen throughout spasms or shakes, or it can also be very like still, but like big feeling of expansion and bliss. So everyone will have their own experience, but it's really that movement of energy upwards rather than outwards.
Yeah.
Upward and inward rather than outward.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Such a beautiful explanation. Because as a society, we're taught that that sexual energy is supposed to be extracted outward, again, whether through ejaculation in the form of a man, or squirting in the form of a woman, or just the orgasm is this like focus on this part of the body, and it's like a release. Like people are like, oh, I just want to release. I want to release.
I release. It's like we've associated that with stress. Like it's so interesting how we've associated stress, like releasing stress with like releasing an ejaculation and an orgasm, for example. And I'm like, oh wow, like we're almost like missing the point. Of course, there gets to be a release. Like sometimes energy needs to like move and be flushed. But there is also some really potent energy that we're missing out on if we're constantly releasing.
Yeah, right. There's like this fixation on, like there's the buildup of the tension, and then as if the only way to move through that is through that outward expression, and then it's like, and then I can relax, instead of, like you said, really learning how to pull that energy upward through the energy centers. And I love that you shared how that actually can create healing in the own body. It's a healing modality because you're literally going into the parts of the body that may need a little more love or a little more attunement because there's some stagnant energy or unprocessed emotions, or, we're getting kind of into the field of somatics, but I know it's the same in the esoteric traditions and the ancient temple arts of like the true cultivation of this sacred life force energy, the Kundalini Ma, is in these practices that involve breath and sound and movement, right? And I would love for you to share more about movement, because I know it's one of your, I would call it like a specialty related to your modalities, and how this energy, how this Kundalini Ma or Shakti moves through you. I feel like you obviously have such a incredible body, and I'm not saying it just because of your physical form and the aesthetic, but it's the way that energy moves through your body and the movement of it. And like, it's like just pure art and the flow and how you've utilized that in your own practice and how you guide your clients to utilize movement. I'm curious about.
And one piece, like before I get into it, it's like, it's also like, for me, people can witness the beauty of that because they remember. Like I literally, during the workshop that we were just at, there was a moment where I was having a big activation and I was letting it move through my body, and I was just like processing emotions while, moving my body, moving the energy, breathing and sounding. And this person just like sat behind me and asked me, like, can I just sit behind you and just I really like your energy and I just really want to be around it. And then later they told me like, I just could feel some similarity. Like I just could feel something in me was activated through that, you know? It's like so interesting because it's not like I get to be like a performer for you to watch, like, how is it to like move Kundalini in my body? It's like, oh no, you get to remember, like your body gets to remember what it feels like by watching it. Because before I had these experiences, like this has been happening really in my body over the last couple of years, really like that intensity. So, and it's because before I also saw those movements in people, you know, I saw like the energy orgasms in Goop, this like series by
Gwyneth Paltrow show.
With like Jaya with the erotic blueprint, and I was seeing this man like from the couple like having an energy orgasm on the table. I was like, what's that? Like this is crazy. Like is he faking it or what? Like what is happening? And also like I'm curious and I want to know more.
Yeah. So your awakening is fairly recent.
Yeah, like in terms of like high energy experiences like that, yes.
Wow.
But I've spent a lot of time in my body. So like coming back to movement, like I think, you know, my journey started really with dancing, just dancing at parties. I never actually got a full dance training, but I just danced a lot. I enjoyed dancing.
Yeah.
And then
you're such a good dancer.
Thank you. But that just like took a certain form. And it's like, then I started yoga and I spent more time in my body. And then like in Tantra, it's a lot about learning the practices of movement, breath and sound. And then it's like and I think the fact that I didn't go through dance training, although at some point I wanted to, and then COVID happened, everything shifted, you know, I did a bit of physical theater, which was really about expressing with your body rather than trying to learn a certain type of movement, which I think was really beneficial in the end because I got to learn how my body wants to move naturally rather than trying to like imprint a movement frame on it.
Yes.
So this is why I actually developed something called the Tantric movement journeys, Tantric movement ceremonies that I like to lead. It's to really bring people into that space of like, what is movement looking in your body right now? Like when you activate that energy, when you let it move you, when you sound and breathe it, what are the movements that are coming out of it? And so this is like an embodiment practice really. But you could just put a really nice song that you like and just dance without thinking, without like no one's watching really. Because then you're out of the performance and you're into the beingness and you're into like the pleasure of it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I want to share, you know, we mentioned Layla Martin earlier and we met in her epic container, the Vita Method Coaching in Costa Rica on a retreat. And, you know, Cleo, again, has an incredible body, an incredible dancer. And I was like witnessing her, you know, from across the room. This is a container with like 100 women. And I'm like, oh my God, look at her cute little ass and the way she's dancing. And I don't like to use the word trigger. I like to say activated. Like I was a little activated in witnessing you. I was like, I wish I could move like her, right? Like, and there's like envy there, but there's also like this opportunity to lean in with curiosity and be like, yeah, maybe I can move that way too, or maybe there's like something here for me. And I remember we had to do these before some of the rituals. It was like Layla wanted us to do a little strip tease, and I was very activated by that because I was like, I don't know how to strip. I don't know how to de-armor my body by taking my clothes off, and to do it in a seductive way to me feels very pejorative. It feels very contrived. It feels unnatural. But in witnessing you, it's so natural for you. So I literally walked up to you and was like, will you coach me? Like, will you give me like a private session on how to strip, like how to move my body? And like, not in we were at an all women's retreat. Like we weren't trying to seduce the masculine, you know, this is just about an embodiment practice of like, how does it feel to take off the layers? How does it feel to de-armor myself and release all the conditioning so that I can show up feeling more alive in my own body and celebrate, like we said, the sensations and the aliveness and not hold on to shame. And yeah, I just really honor you for that, because we then had like this mini workshop on like how to strip. And it was so powerful. And I know you've continued to do that in some of my online containers of like teaching women, again, it's not for a show or a performance, it's for yourself. Like, how do you dance for yourself?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, I really want to honor you for even just that act back then of like being with your activation, moving through it, coming to a place of realization that it's like, oh, I'm activated because I would like to have that experience, and how can I act on it? Like, I get goosebumps because this shows the depth of the work you've done. And it's so beautiful that we get to feel all of it. It's not about trying to bypass and not feel the hard things. It's like, how do we move through feeling those activations?
Yeah.
And how do we go towards reconciliation, sisterhood, and towards the thing that we truly want, with really, like, you want to feel good in your body and feel like you can be sexy for yourself, and like, how can we skill share and like come to a place of equality in that, right?
I love that. Skill share. I love that. I want to steal that. I like co-creation, collaboration, which I know we've done. And I would love to hear from you. Like, what are you excited about? What are your offerings? What are you birthing? What's gestating? I know, again, we just got through this epic container known as Rituals, led by Andy Buru and Justin Gottlieb. And like, so much came up within that just honoring you as an assistant and how you showed up in that space, really in that embodiment and and devotion to this work. And so I know that, there's so much that you're here to do and how you're here to help support and be of service to others. So tell us what's alive in you as far as your offerings.
Yes. Yeah. So I work mainly with men and couples. I'm open to working with women when they come to me, but it's not what I specifically focus on and advertise, because I feel there is a deep need for the masculine to be held in those safe feminine containers. There is so much beauty in men's work, and there is so much healing that gets to happen in the hands of a woman. And so I do a lot of in-person work, like in-person body work, private Tantra workshops, private retreats. And what I'm really excited about now, like, I've been starting to do more group workshops recently. Like, over the last year, I've been like stepping into group facilitation more, which is leading me now to like this vision of a retreat. So I'm working on a retreat, like, to initiate the masculine, like the sacred initiation ritual that they didn't get.
Yes.
And so
seeding this, claiming this today.
Yeah.
This initiation of the masculine in the form of a retreat.
Exactly. Ooh. Like something like leaders in of our society millennia ago used to be initiated by women, by priestesses in temples. They used to receive the gifts of eros, of pleasure, of aliveness, of being in your body, and they got initiated in that so that they could be more integrated in their power and the way they lead the world.
Yes.
And so I believe we come to a place where leading and power and leadership gets to be more integrated again, gets to be more heart-centered again. And so what we are missing is really those initiations, rituals, initiation rites of passage almost. And these get to happen within men's circles. So like men's groups, there's a lot of things happening in the world at the moment, like Mankind Project, Sacred Sons are beautiful rites of passage for men to do their rites with the men amongst the masculine. And then I believe there is other rite of passage that needs to happen with the feminine, with women, that is about letting go of cutting the cord with the mother, not like disassociating fully, but like cutting that cord, that literally that baby cord. You get to be a full human being, and you get to transition. Okay, women are not just my mothers now. They get to also be a sexual being that I want to interact with.
Well, and they get the living archetype of the priestess and the muse, right? So we hold the archetypes of, the woman is the mother, the woman is maybe my sister, and the woman is my lover, my sexual companion, or my wife. Yeah. But they also are getting the oracle, the priestess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's here to awaken that sacred remembrance and initiate them.
Initiate that remembrance of what ultimately I believe is the essence of their true divinity. Like that we all get to remember how sacred our life is, how sacred we are. And so that happens in those journeys, in those ceremonies, in those profound transmissions that we get to have. There is lots of modalities that you can go about. Some people go to plant medicine journeys, and I love how Josephina always refers to Eros priestessing, like working with Eros almost as a plant medicine. And it's very much so, like we get to be activated and we get to go to places that are really like altered states of consciousness where we get to remember. I'm really like, would love to hear your take on this, but because it's also like...
Yeah. I'll do it briefly because I know, we're wrapping up here. But Eros as medicine. Yeah, so it's in this understanding and awareness, like you've presenced, that we're really here having this human experience. And we're here to remember the divinity within and our capacity to access the divine via the body. Right? The body as the channel, the body as the vessel. This is why we pray to God, but we can also use the body as the channel and this bridge between earth and sky, between matter and divinity, or matter and infinity, right? And often humans are getting to these, as you presence, these altered states of consciousness through plant medicine, through maybe some holotropic breath work, through transcendental meditation. But there's another way to access these altered states of consciousness. This is why people like do drugs to get high, right? They're just trying to get close to God, Goddess, the divine. We can also get high. We can also get closer to God and the divinity through sex, through this cultivation of Eros, like you presenced earlier, not through the ejaculation, not through humping and pumping and dumping, but through actually pulling that sacred life force energy upward, right? Upward to access the divinity. So Eros is my medicine, and I'm here to normalize it within our culture instead of vilifying it, shaming it, shoving it down, and projecting upon it. So thank you for recognizing that. So just to close out, how can folks find you if they want to work with you deeper and hear about this amazing retreat that you're calling in for 2026? How can we find you?
So my Instagram handle is the Tantric Muse, the.tantric.muse. And that's like where I'm the most alive and present. My website is thetantricmuse.com. I have a newsletter there that you can subscribe to. I don't send too many, don't worry about it. Just like here and there, just to keep people posted of my offerings and my tours. And from these two platforms, you will find like contact formulas or my WhatsApp or my email that you can contact me with.
Beautiful. Thank you, sister.
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
here today.